I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Thank God it's Friday. Great to be live on KBLA in Los Angeles, California. And I'm so honored and grateful to God that our producer, Gina Towns, who fell ill last week just before the show, earlier in the week, and now she is recovering slowly, but she is here with us today, and our prayers have been lifted up for Gina, and I'm just grateful. She's everything tied to this show. It was her idea. She created the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. She's responsible for all of the people in the background, and I'm telling you, just as sure as I'm sitting here, there are a half a dozen people at least at work to make this show work. And so, welcome back, Gina. I was sitting back earlier today, and I was saying to myself, all of these institutions of higher learning are now capitulating to Donald Trump out of fear, not only that they will lose federal funds, but their institutions themselves may not survive the onslaught of, one, shutting down the Department of Education, and number two, the massive infrastructure that is discouraging private sector and private individuals from contributing to institutions during this era of, well, a dark enlightenment. So I said to myself, who could we have on our program this last day of the week to help us unpack some of the extraordinary issues that have occurred over just the last week, the last 50 days? What we can expect in the remainder of the Trump term as president of the United States, and the entire infrastructure that will take decades to replace and reform when his reign is over. Immediately came to mind Dr. Ted Williams III, passionate educator, actor, author, who's the graduate of Rutgers University, got his BA there, the University of Chicago, a master's of public policy, a doctorate of ministry at Northern Seminary. He teaches political science and is the chairman of the social sciences department at Kennedy King College, one of the city colleges of Chicago. Currently, he's also an adjunct professor at Wheaton College and previously at Chicago State University. Williams is the former host of WYCC PBS Television's The Professor's Public Affairs Talk Show and has provided insightful political commentary for WGN, NBC TV, Upfront with Jesse Jackson, and a host of other additional media outlets. But it's this part of his biography that I want you to pay close attention to. As an actor, he has appeared in commercials for companies including Subway, Cheerios, Empire Carpet, and recently appeared in films Human Zoos, The Christmas Thief, and on NBC's Chicago PD and Showtime's The Chi. Furthermore, he is contributor to the Third World Press, Not My President, creator of the production Torn, the musical, and author of the book, listen to this, The Way Out, Christianity, Politics, and the Future of the African American Community. That's why he's on our show today. His justice-infused artistic work has been funded by the Illinois Arts Council, Illinois Humanities, and the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Dr. Ted Williams, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It is good to be here, brother. I am inspired because there's so much going on, but to be with folks like yourself gives me inspiration and hope. So I'm happy to be here, brother. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Williams, I was watching television the other day and this commercial came on and I saw you standing in line for something, ordering something. And I said, wait a minute. Is that Ted?
Well, I do a little of this. I got 3 jobs, man. I got 3 kids. I got 3 jobs to go for each kid. So I do a little of this, a little bit of that. You might.
Ted, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you're here. And for some reason, I think your screen may have frozen. But I want to share with you, while we work on this small technical difficulty, that Ted is not just an artist. Not just an artist. I said a doctor. He has a PhD. He is a professor and the head of a political science program, but he's also an actor. Earlier today, I was playing around on Facebook and I found Anthony Mackie's page, another very conscious brother who's playing Captain America. And Anthony and I are now working out a relationship, and I hope to have him on our program in the future. But Ted is a very, very special scholar. engaged, capable of unpacking some very, very difficult issues. Ted, this is what was on my mind today, and we can go through the gambit over the course of the hour, but the chilling effect of Donald Trump at Columbia University and what it means for higher education. Why don't we begin our program right there?
Yeah. So Donald Trump, as you know, through reading Project 2025, this effort to dismantle federal support for public education has been decades long, right? I remember a congressman that I had many years ago who wrote a book about a more perfect union. And I remember this conversation, yes, sir, yes, because as you know, as a person of African descent, the federal government, the protection of the federal government has been our saving grace in this country. The idea of states' rights has always been a curse word in the Black community because states have never protected us equally. So anyone that would say, well, it doesn't matter, education is not being funded well or not doing well, does not understand history. And we have to put this in the context of history. So the Department of Education, as we know, has existed since 1979 under Jimmy Carter, and essentially does a variety of things across the board. But in the higher education space, they fund research. They fund all kinds of data that helps schools to do their work. Now, with Columbia specifically, the president has cut immediately $400 million of research grants. Now, it's interesting because if you watched his State of the Union or full State of the Union address, his State of the Nation address, he ultimately said that we were wasting money.
You mean the campaign speech?
The campaign speech.
I mean, that he gave before the Congress, right? I mean, that was
yeah,
a State of the Union address.
Yeah, that was not a State of the Union, But so it was a campaign speech, right? But he says, hey, the Department of Education has to go because we're doing all this research on all these crazy things, and then he goes on this long list, this litany of things that the federal government is funding. That half of it wasn't true, right? So there is an anti-intellectual nature to this movement. I was watching the other day that the breakdown on people that support Trump is 100% at the space of those who are educated and those who are uneducated. And particularly in the white community. So white folks who have taken the time to go to school, they oppose him in the 70 percentile, right? But those who have not, in the Caucasian community, they support him by that same number. And so the breakdown, really what we are seeing is a crisis in education. And places like Columbia and places like the University of Chicago and places all across the world, these wonderful institutions are being threatened by a administration that believes that education is deleterious. How on earth can you possibly have a country that survives and thrives and competes in the global economy if you do not make investments in education? And the irony in all of this, by the way, is our president has used the Department of Education's research to make the argument why we should give quote unquote education back to the states, which it already is the states, by the way. So we're under attack, brother. And I tell you, anyone who is aware of what's going on now, who's conscious, who cares about education, now is the time to stand up.
Ted, in this moment, I'm thinking about something that Lyndon Johnson said when he said, I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it all. If you can find the lowest white man and teach him or share with him that he is better than the most educated colored man, he'll let you empty his pockets. And that just sounds like former segregationist Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson, who becomes President Johnson, makes the transition, obviously advances some of the most critical civil rights legislation of the 20th century in the 64 Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and public accommodations legislation, and probably would have run for office again had it not been for the Vietnam War. But to your point, that the lowest white man in this country, educationally, Donald Trump is beating his horse in that specific direction.
Absolutely. And we have to understand what that means. To your point, we're going to be, I was talking to someone earlier today, and they go, man, this stuff is happening, and it is moving. It's going to take the next president to come in, the next Democratic president that we are going to get as a backlash to this craziness. I believe with all my heart. And imagine what he's or she is going to have to do to reverse course on everything that this man has done in the first month that he's been in office. And why on earth, think about this. President Obama articulated this very well during his time in office. We have to make these investments because we have to be able to compete in the global economy. Dr. King said we cannot have a first-class nation with second-class citizens. The unfortunate ideology on the American right is that we can have wealth, inequality, and the country will do just fine. That certain pockets of the country can do well. The top 1% own more in the country than the bottom 40% combined. And that somehow or another, the country will survive. Well, history has proven very clearly, Brother Jesse, that that's not the case.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Ted, hold that thought. I promise you we're going to get to it when we come forward. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
The revolution will not be televised.
What's up? It is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to more, not less, of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Stories are power. The Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project is an effort to collect, preserve, and amplify stories of Black land loss. It will form an invaluable resource for scholars, authors, historians, educators, storytellers, policymakers, and change agents who wrestle with issues of restitution, reparations, racial inequality in home ownership, and the racial wealth gap. Through documenting stories of Black land loss, the archive will help demonstrate the magnitude of what Black families have lost and will continue the national dialogue to encourage paths to restitution, rebuilding, and healing. Support the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project by visiting www.blacklandlost.org or by donating at www.blacklandlost.org/donate. Spread the word to inspire awareness, activism, leadership, and change. And join us in making a lasting impact. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest, Dr. Ted Williams III, a passionate educator, actor, author, Rhodes Scholar, appointed by the governor of Illinois to the Reparations Commission. We're going to unpack a whole lot right here, Ted. I see your microphone is still muted. Ted, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is good to be back.
Ted, just before the break, you were finishing a point, and then I want to dive right into the way out.
Yeah, so essentially, I was talking about this idea that we are going to get stronger as a nation by taking away investments in children. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense. If the president truly believed that we were not excelling in education, why would we not then pour more money into education? Let me explain by comparison. Our defense budget is about $800 billion a year. Our education budget at the federal level is about $200 billion a year. And so we fund war, we fund defense, but we don't fund our children. So the president has stated that his idea to deal with the lack of proficiency in reading and writing and those sorts of things is to take away funding at the federal level and then give it back, quote unquote, to the states. If you understand the way the Constitution works, education is already at the states. The states already are primarily responsible for curriculum. They're primarily responsible for all of the functions of education. But what the federal government does is support things like students with disabilities. We spend $15 billion a year for 7.4 million students through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We also are doing things like higher ed funding and those kinds of things. And once again, research, making sure, as you know, brother, through not only your work and your family's work, whatever, and all those things, that the gains in the civil rights movement, when we had states doing education and we had the decision Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, and we understood inequality cannot work when we're dealing with education. We must have federal standards and federal accountability. We ought to be funding the Department of Education more, not less. And so the next president, whoever that person may be, and I'm holding my breath, brother, for the next 3.5 years. We got a lot of work to do.
You raised this question of the next president. It seems to me that now we are learning, and I heard Congressman Al Green say this the other day, Ted, that he didn't know that there were powers that the presidency had that Donald Trump is now exercising. It seems to me that the next Democratic nominee ought to be able to show his supporters, her supporters at this hour, what constitutional executive orders they would be willing to sign on day one to address what Donald Trump has done in just 50 days. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I'm thinking about not only education. I don't know if you have followed this EPA situation and this person that we have who's running the institution that's supposed to protect our air and water. And the first thing out of his mouth when he gets appointed is, we're going to make sure that the auto industry does better. We're going to make sure that we have more energy jobs. Those are the priorities of this administration. And people are literally dying as a result of it. So you've got deregulation in the EPA, the dismantling of the Department of Education, the Federal Elections Commission dismantling. This is all once again in Project 2025. If you go back and read that 900-page document, it lays out this plan for dismantling all of it. And so whoever we have, the Democrats have to step forward in a way that we maybe have not stepped forward before. We have to match the energy. We have to match the aggressiveness. And when we get new leadership in the White House, they will have to match the use of executive orders and all the various things that our current president is doing. And this is really a test of whether this place is a true democracy, right? And many people have said that prior to 1965, we weren't even a true democracy because everyone did not have the federally protected right to vote. And so I am a person of faith, brother. So I believe, right, beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? I believe in things that are not seen. This is a dark time, but I do believe brighter days are ahead. And so we have to keep organizing, we have to keep educating, but we cannot stand down. We have to stand up so that we can see better days.
Ted, I want to press through this idea of the way out, that which you articulated in your book, that there's an intersection between Christianity, politics, and the future of the African American community. Share with us how your faith and politics informs that conclusion.
Yes. I'll say this again. You know, we have such a great legacy. Your father, Reverend Dr. King. If you look at, I'm a fan of Medgar Evers and of Fannie Lou Hamer and of Rosa Parks and of Malcolm X and of all the people who lived during that era that I grew up reading about in school. And they were people of faith, because they recognized and understood that without our faith, we did not have the moral capacity to lead a moral revolution, which is what we were calling the nation to. We were not just calling the nation to equal rights or economic progress. We were calling the nation to transform its very heart and mind, and to also live out the creed that it had laid forward. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. God being the very source of those rights, no God, no rights. And so we have always been in this moral space, and this is our future. And as you know very well, also the church community has been the organizing source for us too. I liken the story of the African American community to the biblical story of Joseph often. You look at what happened with the story of Joseph. We look at his persecution unjustly. We look at him being sold into slavery. We look at him being incarcerated. And we also recognize that even though all of these injustices occurred towards this gentleman, at the end of the day, God used what he went through to bring salvation and to bring substance and to bring an ability to survive to an entire nation. And so we have to recognize, African Americans, we have a $1 trillion economy, $1 trillion. It would make us the 15th wealthiest in the world if we were a separate nation. We have been through so much in this country. And in many ways, we are so unequal compared to our European American brothers and sisters. We have 1/10 the wealth that they have. However, even with the fact that we are unequal in America, we still are global leaders across the world. And with that, I look at this, and I do not in any way, shape, or form say that, God put us through this or anything like that. I don't believe that. But what I do believe, that what the enemy meant for harm, God meant for good. What the enslavers meant for harm, God meant for good. African Americans lead this world culturally. We are a very envied people. If you look at what is going on, I went to South Korea a couple times, and I remember sitting on the airplane and watching all of the young people dancing, doing the hip hop movements that they learned from African Americans in New York City and across the rest of the nation. And so I'm proud of who we are, and we've got to understand that our faith, these are some dark times, brother. They are some dark times, brother. This is why we must press into something higher. Yes, we fight for justice. Yes, we fight for our rights, but we've got to tie in to that greater power to help us to keep going.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Ted Williams. When we come forward, more from the author, the educator, and the actor.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Courtney Merritt's husband of former Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush, who is Black, is charged with wire fraud for allegedly defrauding federal COVID relief programs. His attorney says he plans to plead not guilty. The University of Virginia has released a report on the 2022 shooting that killed 3 black football players. The shooter pled guilty and will be sentenced this November. The report recommends stronger threat assessment and safety measures. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, despite low poll ratings, compares himself to late Mayor Harold Washington. He highlighted reopening mental health clinics, creating affordable housing, and 29,000 summer jobs. Johnson is touring black churches to build support amid migrant crisis tensions. And music producer and alleged Crips gang leader Eugene Big U Henley remains in federal custody after surrendering in Los Angeles. He's accused of extortion, human trafficking, fraud, and a 2021 murder. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
They've got snow. Time to bundle up. The Palm Springs Aerial Tramway. Sled speed downhill. Angels appear in the drifts. A jolly snowman welcomes you back. Bring the entire family for a day in their winter wonderland. The Palm Springs Aerial Tramway. Snow at its peak. pstramway.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For alumni of Southern University in the Los Angeles area, your HBCU team is facing a very tough challenge in tonight's NCAA tournament women's basketball game at UCLA. UCLA is the overall number 1 seed in the tournament and the number 1 team in the country. I bring this up to give Southern fans a dose of reality before tonight's game. Southern was 15-3 in the SWAC conference and won the SWAC tournament, but they were 2-11 against non-conference teams. The 11 losses were by an average of 25.4 points. Southern lost by 56 to Texas. Other schools on Southern's non-conference schedule included Oklahoma, Missouri, Iowa State, North Carolina State, and Colorado. I give Southern credit for playing a difficult non-conference schedule, but they did not fare well in preparing for the SWAC regular season. Just wanted to give Southern fans a heads up before they walk into Pauley Pavilion tonight. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
On January 7th, 2025, the Eaton Canyon Fire scorched Altadena, torching everything in its path. Homes, wealth, and legacy burned in one night. But will Altadena rise from the ashes? I'm James Farr. On the Conversation Live Altadena Rising, we're chronicling the recovery, the resilience, and justice for the nation. This is the show of record, unapologetically progressive. We're not blacking down. So join me, James Farr, on the Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific with the rebroadcast on Sunday at noon.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. You know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose. And millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive and we don't black down.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Ted Williams, passionate educator, actor, author, scholar, activist, professor, chairman of social sciences department at a major university, author, The Way Out, Christianity, Politics, and the Future of the African American Community. Dr. Williams, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
If I can take just 1 minute and 30 seconds to opine on the framework, and that framework that Dr. Williams has shared with us and reinforced from previous shows that we've had is that when you hear the President of the United States or any politician say they want to turn power over to the states, that ought raise the hair on the back of every African American and freedom-loving person in the United States. Abraham Lincoln in 1859, 1860 ran to stop the expansion of slavery into the western states. The southern states, because of the 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights, said that they had a constitutional right to extend slavery into the western states, that they had a state's right to keep African Americans or Africans at that time in state chattel systems, slavery, and those were the legal arguments that they used. Before Lincoln could even become president, 11 states had already seceded from the Union. That was a battle, the Civil War, over chattel slavery. But in 2024, 2025, in this era, whenever you hear a president say he wants to turn education over to the states, that is slavery in a different form, not chattel. It just guarantees a separate and unequal system, 50 different state systems, 3,000 different county systems, 20,000 different municipal systems. It is impossible to guarantee or build a more perfect union for every American in education, the disabled, the left behind, those who've been discriminated against, those who do not have equal funding. It is impossible without the coordination of a United States Department of Education. When you hear Trump, and he's going to say it soon, I'm turning healthcare back over to the states, it is separate and unequal healthcare in a different form. When you hear, as Dr. Williams said, turning the environment back over to what? The states. It's unclean air, unclean water, different standards in different local municipalities and jurisdictions, a race to the bottom with respect to the environment, slavery in a different form. When you hear the president say we should not have a federal voting right, turn it over to the states. It's separate and unequal voting. Now, this is the same country that can build airports where airplanes can take off from New York and land in Los Angeles on the same size runway. But when it comes to building schools, we simply can't do it. We simply can't provide health care for everybody. We simply can't provide housing for everybody. And that is at the core of what Dr. Williams, I believe, has articulated for us today. Dr.
Brother,
Williams?
and it's hypocritical. Because the same people that want to shrink the government, like Elon Musk, are making $8 million a day off of the federal government. See, when the federal government benefits these folks, they want the federal government. But when it doesn't, they want to go the opposite way. And let me say this about this history, and I know you are a historian as well. The Confederacy in their Constitution articulated the idea that they wanted to expand slavery. People tried to make the argument the Civil War was not about slavery, and it's in their very Constitution, in their very words. But the symbolism of this ideology, Lincoln wanted a situation where the Confederates, to get back into the Union, would have to pledge 10% of them their allegiance to the United States. Andrew Johnson comes in, wipes that away. And so there never was punishment. It's like a fire that you don't put out the embers and it continues to burn. The Confederacy was never punished. There was a movement in the early 1900s to rewrite the history. The Daughters of the Confederacy started popping up statues all over the South to try to say that, you know, the Confederate, the Civil War was not about what it was really about, and that the Confederates were heroes. And we move forward into today, where we still fly this Confederate flag in America. If you were go to Germany right now, you would not see a Nazi flag flying, because the Germans understand the consequences of what happened. We also have a situation with a president who just pardoned 1,500 people for a treasonous act, similar, not as treasonous as the Civil War, but a treasonous act. And I remember reading that the president was in a meeting about this, and they started going through case by case, and he goes, you know what? Just pardon them all. Because the president does not have the capability intellectually or the patience to actually go through these things. He is a big stroke, broad stroke kind of person who really does not read very much or care to learn about details, that sort of thing. He leads from his hip, right? He shoots from the hip. And so what happens with this is that just as the Confederates were not punished, the January 6th insurrections were not punished, they will rise again, brother. Because we saw this with the Confederacy, and what America has to do is reckon with its history. This is bigger than Donald Trump. And this is bigger than this moment right now. Until we reckon with this history, America cannot be great again. It cannot be great at all, ever. If we do not figure out how to stop destroying ourselves from within. Abraham Lincoln, the scriptures teach that a house divided cannot stand. And that is exactly what we have had. This nation must decide if we are going to truly be a land for all people, or if we are going to be a land of inequality. And unfortunately, that ideology has been allowed to live and breathe. And it is an ideology that is anti-American. It is treasonous, and it will destroy this nation from the inside. We won't need somebody from the outside to come and do it.
I'm certainly hopeful, Dr. Williams, that CNN is listening, MSNBC is listening, that other podcasters are listening. Dr. Ted Williams III ought to be your guest. Dr. Williams, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
I am on all the social medias except for X. I do not do not mess with X, man. You know, but you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Threads and Instagram, Ted Williams III, and I've got a website and those sorts of things. But we all got to, you know, as the African proverb says, bro, each one must preach one, and each one must teach one. We all got to be doing this work, brother. We all have to be doing it.
I'm very excited to have you as our very special guest. Dr. Williams, let me ask you a question, and that is whether or not there truly is a way out. Reverend Jeremiah Wright was very clear. America has a problem. Dr. King, in some of his final remarks, were America is sick. Malcolm did not think in some core parts of his belief system that America was redeemable. Is America redeemable, Dr. Williams?
That's an excellent question, brother. Going back to Dr. King's statement about the triplets of racism, militarism, and materialism, we do have a sickness. And I'd like to believe, I grew up, sort of in the 80s and, the 90s. And I thought that we had overcome in certain ways, right? I'd seen, people on TV, your dad run for president. We had Oprah on TV and Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson and all these folks. I'm like, man, we'd overcome. And I did not understand how that sickness was still there. And so to answer your question, brother, I don't know. I'd like to believe that we will honestly make it in this country, but that racism, militarism, and materialism are still with us. And maybe they're growing because Donald Trump is a manifestation of that. And that, I think, brother, tells us maybe Dr. King and them were right in the sense that maybe this place is not redeemable long term, but I'm still here to believe that it is.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, I'm going to ask Dr. Ted Williams a question or two and then ask him to conclude on some hope. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-652-1714. That's 800-652-1714. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-652-1714 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
A new day is on the horizon.
Behind every great moment in history, there's a woman whose story went untold. This March on KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing those hidden narratives to light. Hear extraordinary stories of women who transformed science, politics, arts, and community. Women you've never heard of, but should know. Celebrating Women's History Month on KBLA Talk 1580, where every story matters.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
If you've struggled to lose weight in the past, this important message is for you because you could lose as much as 50 pounds or more with Zelfie. Zelfie makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelfie providers can prescribe FDA-approved GLP-1 weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others. Plus, help get the medication covered by insurance so it's it's as little as $0 a month. The doctors are super helpful, and the meds have been a game changer. It's the first program I've had success with.
Before Zelty, I was unable to lose weight, even though I was eating healthy and exercising 6 days a week. Zelty helped me not only lose weight, but I feel so much better.
Text GOAL to 200-300 to get started today with Zelty and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy or Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text GOAL to 200-300. That's GOAL to 200-300. GOAL to 200-300.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest for the last hour has been Dr. Ted Williams III, educator, actor, and author. Dr. Williams, before I go into, welcome back to the show. Your microphone, I think, is muted. Before I go into a couple of final questions, I want to ask you a question about our filter as African Americans and our processing. How do we process this moment? And by that, I mean, when they ran through USAID, and I don't want to sound like I'm offending people who genuinely have committed their lives to helping poor people in poor countries around the world. But I felt for them knowing, having served on the Foreign Operations Committee, what that means in Africa. Fresh water, malaria shots. I felt that. But I know there's some people who that's all they see. When I saw our Latino brothers being exported, if you will, or deported back to countries in South America, I mean, I feel their pain. Even Jeb Boasberg, Judge Jeb Boasberg was in high school with me, whose orders have been defied by the president's administration. I feel Judge Jeb Boasberg's pain every day, knowing that court orders have been defied and he has to keep pressing the administration for information. But as an African American, and this is my pivot, as an African American, on almost every single issue, from diversity, equity, and inclusion, closing the Department of Education, returning power to the states, fighting against state voting systems and removing people from the rolls, undermining Social Security. Almost every single issue, there are 10 issues a day that might be seen in the white community as an issue that they're focused on, just one issue at a time, but all 10 of them hit me. All 10 of them hit you. We are such an integral part, our spirits are such an integral part of this system that we feel every single issue in ways that some people might only be concerned about their local school, as opposed to completely understanding the full ramifications of just how devastating this period is. How do we process it, and how do we filter ourselves? What issues do we pick every day, and the rest of them we just say, I'm not going to deal with that today, so that we can maintain our own sanity?
That's an excellent question. Malcolm X said that we don't have the luxury to fight on just any one front. We must fight on all fronts, because there are people in this country that honestly, Brother Jesse, don't really need the government to protect their rights. They're doing just fine. And so for us, when the government decides to not protect marginalized people, white America gets a cold, we get pneumonia. And so these things impact us in a much more significant way. I think at the core, I go back to Dr. King's statement about racism, militarism, materialism.
KBLA 15.
At the core, we must deal with this question of equity. At the core, we must deal with the question of education. At the core, we honestly, and we've always wanted this, by the way, after the Civil War, the the Republicans who Lincoln was leading at the time sat down with a group of African American ministers and asked them what they wanted. And as we know, they secured 400,000 acres of land from Charleston, South Carolina, down to St. John's River in Florida. And the African American ministers said to General Sherman for his field order number 15, we just want to be left alone. We just want the ability to give us this land and let us leave us alone. Mm-hmm. And so even in the book, I write about essentially the 3 principles for us that ultimately we got to be fighting for. We have to fight for our own economic sustainability. We have to essentially continue to fight for education. Nelson Mandela said education is the greatest tool we had to change the world. And we have to internally deal with our challenges that we have faced in the destruction of our families and communities. And once that's done, ultimately, African Americans want to be left alone. And so there's so many issues. And I, brother, I don't even know that I can tell you. I mean, at the core, that's what I think. But I can't tell you I can ignore the environment. I can't tell you I can ignore, these other pernicious things that are happening. But I think we focus on those things and we begin to build, because at the end of the day, we recognize in this season that even though the government is critical to our survival, depending on who's in office, we might not be able to rely on them at all. And we got to figure out ways to build ourselves in our communities from the ground up.
I mean, 1 minute it's Jackie Robinson, removing him from the website. The next minute it's removing the Tuskegee Airmen and then adding them back to the website. And it's just like, it's just so overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, which is the strategy, by the way. Yes.
But I don't know how much more we can process it and maintain some level of sanity in the process, because you know what? Share with us your thinking on the strategy, and then my final question to you.
Yeah, so it's a blitz of a blizzard, if you will, of information, right, and of movement. And so you start to help dealing with this issue over here, and then this fire jumps over here, and then you try to do that, and then move over here. And I think it's a purposeful strategy of chaos. And it's actually not that unlike what other authoritarian leaders have done historically. I want to, as we close out, sort of talk about what has happened around the world with some authoritarian leaders and how they've actually gotten out of power and how this too may pass. But I ultimately believe that our president knows one thing he is good at, and I don't think he's, a broken clock is right twice a day, brother. One thing he's good at is manipulating the media. And he knows how to get us to jump over here and jump over there and jump over here and really miss what is going on. And I think that we just gotta, we gotta keep our eyes on the prize, man, and not get overwhelmed and honestly, we need to protect our own mental health during this time as well. I'm all in this political stuff, but brother, on Sundays, sometimes part of Saturday, I gotta cut it off because it's so overwhelming. And I have to restore, renew, and get ready to go back into the fight on Monday.
I like that. Dr. Williams, can you share with us a word of hope?
Here is the word of hope. Okay. As I used to say, as our mamas and our grandmamas used to say back in the old church, trouble don't last always. Right. As the word says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Let me tell you what, if you look at South Korea, they have dealt with authoritarian leadership right now, have arrested their president and are dealing with that. Chile survived after Pinochet. If you look at Brazil, Bolsonaro was just replaced. This Trumpian figure, Bolsonaro, was just replaced by a much more progressive person, President Lula. And so I honestly believe that if you watch countries around the world, authoritarianism sounds good a little bit. We're going to get cheap gas and cheap eggs. But when the rubber meets the road, and people begin to lose their Social Security, people begin to lose their federal jobs, I have faith in the American people that ultimately they are going to react. I know you've probably seen these town hall meetings, and I know that you are seeing what's going on across the country. And I believe there will be a groundswell of people who are saying this is enough. We will not stand for it. And I pray to God that happens before too many people are hurt. But I have faith, number one, in our Lord, but number two, in the people. I think that we will get through this, brother. I really, really do. And it's going to make us more committed and more protective of this democracy that we have taken for granted.
Dr. Ted Williams has been our very special guest. He's obviously a very passionate educator, actor, and author. One more time, Dr. Williams, on how our listeners can get in touch with you.
TedWilliamsIII.com and Ted Williams III on all the social media platforms. Thank you,
And
brother.
that the third is three ones or three eyes.
Yeah, 3 eyes. It's very important for my grandfather and my father and my son as well. The legacy. You understand that.
I'm so honored and privileged to have you and look forward to you contributing to our program as regularly, sir, as you would like.
Absolutely.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest has been Dr. Ted Williams III, passionate educator, actor, and author. Until next time.